Stop the scroll. There is a building about 2.5 hours from here that pulls more electricity than the entire city of Tacoma. It has almost no employees and gets a sales tax exemption on its equipment most small businesses could only truly dream of. Somebody decided that was a good deal for our county. Nobody asked you though. If you've watched your power bill slowly creep up, watched the thousands of jobs announcement quietly turn into just 50 people, and had someone in a suit tell you it's all a win for the community, you're not crazy. You're truly paying attention here. I'm Lianne Hall. I sell real estate across all of Western Washington, Gig Harbor, Port Orchard, Tacoma, and I actually read the bill reports so my clients don't get blindsided. So let's go through it. What data centers actually get, what they actually leave behind, what is costing regular people, and what are you going to do about it? Let's go. All right, let's start with why this is happening so fast, because 3 years ago, almost nobody outside the industry used to even know the phrase data center. All right, so this isn't the slow-growing data center industry that's quietly run email servers and online banking for 20 years. This is the AI build-out. Training these models takes a genuinely unpredicted amount of computing power, and that power lives in buildings like the one I just showed you. So Washington State was an early willing host. They had cheap hydropower, we have a cool climate, and a rural county sales tax exemption that's been on the books since the mid-2000s. Quincy and Grant County became the proof of this concept. Microsoft built there first because the economics were simply better than almost anywhere else. And here's the part that should sound very familiar. If you've ever watched Olympia hand out a deal, well, in 2022, that same tax exemption that ended up getting expanded to counties over 800,000 people. So we'd be talking King County, Snohomish, and Pierce, yes, our own backyard here. That same incentive that built Quincy is now legally available to bring this straight into the Puget Sound corridor. Now, here's what actually happened, because there are two headlines from this year, and they're not the same thing. So, as of July 1st, the sales and use tax exemption for refurbished data centers completely expired. No new exemption certificates for retrofitting an existing building, and replacement server equipment got pulled out of the exemption too. So that's a real change. It's also a narrow one. New builds still qualify for a very big incentive. It's the maintenance and the retrofit game that just got more expensive. All right, so here's what happened. Olympia tried to go further with the House Bill 2515. That's the one that would have made data centers, not regular ratepayers, cover the cost of their own grid upgrades. Makes sense, right? It actually passed the House by a solid margin back in February. Then it hit the Senate, and it died in committee. When the session adjourned in March, that never became a law. So read that combination carefully. They tightened the paperwork on refurbished buildings. They let the bill that actually would have protected your power bill die quietly in committee. Now, that's not cracking down. That's a press release, in my opinion. Now let's talk about who actually benefits, starting with the numbers that shows up on your bill, whether you asked for this or not. In just the first half of 2026, utilities nationwide asked regulators for an $18.6 billion in rate increases, already closing in on all of 2025's total. Residential rates are projected to jump over 10% this summer in a lot of the markets, and 78% of Americans are already telling pollsters they're worried about these data centers specifically for this reason. All right, so here in Washington, Grant County PUD built its whole reputation on some of the cheapest power here in America, straight off the hydro dams they were using. And now that same PUD needs 6 new transmission lines just to keep up. So that price tag for something like that is about $260 million. And guess who's paying that back? Well, the customers on that grid, including the ones who never asked for a data center down the road. This is exactly the cost shift that House Bill 2515 was supposed to stop. It didn't pass, so for now, that is just how it's going to work. And before you write this off as a Grant County problem, data centers are already eligible to be built in Pierce, King, and Snohomish counties too. The grid doesn't stop at a county line, and neither does this bill. So wait till you hear what happens to the jobs numbers once that ribbon cutting's over. So every time one of these gets proposed, the pitch includes a jobs number, and it's usually a real number for about, let's say, 18 months. Microsoft's original Quincy facility had up to 500 workers, so keep that in mind at their peak construction. Once they finished that building, 50 full-time staff, not 50 per phase, but 50 period, were running the facility the size of several football fields. That's not a Microsoft problem. That's the whole business model here. So the industry data puts large hyperscale data centers at roughly 1 to 2 staff per megawatt, because the entire point of technology is that it doesn't need people anymore. It needs power, it needs land, water, and fiber. Here's the real number that actually keeps getting quoted at every single hearing. The state's own modeling projects that they could add about $2.7 billion to Washington's GDP and a $2.2 billion to personal income over a decade. That's a real number. But spread statewide, that same modeling puts ongoing operation jobs at around 665 a year. That's against roughly 6,600 construction jobs over that same 10-year window. Big number on the press release, tiny number once those concrete trucks leave that joint. So next time a county rolls out thousands of jobs to sell you on some type of new tax break, ask which kind. The 18-month kind or the kind that will be there in a year 1, year 5? Usually it's the first one. All right, so real quick, if any of this is hitting home to you and you've been thinking about maybe moving to Washington, maybe you're moving out of Washington, or you're just relocating here, I've got a relocation guide. I'd love to share it with you. There's no spin to this. What this does is it'll break down what the taxes actually mean, what the real cost of living is up here, the neighborhoods. I'll break them down and tell you which ones are going to hold their value. If you want something like this, the link is in the bio, or you can just reach out to me and I'll send it your way. Now here's the part that gets almost no airtime because it's not as flashy as a jobs number or a new tax bill. So data centers don't just need power, they actually need water, a lot of it, and they need that for cooling. And a chunk of Washington's data center corridor, which is Grant, Douglas, and Chelan counties, currently sits anywhere from abnormally dry to a moderate drought. Nationally, this has turned into one of the sharpest fights in the industry. So grassroots opposition groups more than doubled in a single quarter. 396 at the end of 2025 and 833 by March of this year. In the first 3 months of 2026 alone, community opposition blocked or delayed at least 75 projects worth a combined $130 billion. New York just passed the country's first statewide moratorium on new hyperscale data centers. Washington hasn't gone this far, but lawmakers are openly using the phrase setting the terms of engagement. What that tells you is the honeymoon phase, where any county would take any data center on any terms, it's over. All right, to be fair to the industry, because I'm not here to just torch one side, but Microsoft rolled out this community first pledge. They're promising its data centers won't drive up the power bills for anyone else on the grid. Over 200 utilities and developers signed a federal ratepayer protection pledge doing the same exact thing. Is that meaningful? Maybe. Is it enforceable in a way that shows up on your actual bill in 5 years? That's the real question. So a voluntary pledge is not a rate structure. A voluntary pledge is pretty much treat it the same way you'd have a seller telling you, yeah, the roof's probably fine. Not worth banking on. Okay, the part you actually came here for. What does any of this do to your home or the one you're about to buy? All right, here is the myth buster. Data centers do not uniformly raise home values. It's a split market, and where you land depends entirely on your proximity. In Quincy, the actual epicenter, data centers generate around roughly 75% of the city's property tax revenue, according to State Representative Alex Ybarra. That's a real win for the budget. They're getting better roads, better schools, more services without squeezing it out of the homeowners. And yet, Quincy's own home price appreciation has recently ranked among the slowest in the county. Being the data center capital of Washington has not translated into a hot residential market. So much for everybody wins. All right, so why do we have a disconnect here? Because the benefit of the burden doesn't land on the same properties here. So if you're on a piece of land that's near a facility, that spikes for industrial use. A home near the campus can face real buyer resistance, and here's why. Because you got noise, there's construction going on, uncertainty, and now that rate and water concerns stacked on top of all of that. Homes elsewhere in that same county, away from your hum, can quietly benefit from the stronger tax base without absorbing any of these downsides. That split is about to matter way beyond central Washington. Now that Pierce County, King, and Snohomish counties are eligible for that same tax structure, expect proposals near the I-5 corridor. The industrial zones may be near Tacoma, Fife for sure, and the ports, not just Wheat County. Same divide, different zip code. If you want the real no-spin breakdown, what these tax breaks actually mean for someone who isn't a data center executive, maybe the real costs of living here, the neighborhoods worth putting your money into, grab my relocation guide. It's in the link below. So what do you actually do? Complaining doesn't refinance anybody's mortgage. And here's my real answer. I've got 3 for you. Number 1, try asking sharper questions before you fall for the pitch. If you're relocating to Washington, don't just ask about the school district and the commute. Ask which utility serves the property, whether there's a data center built or proposed anywhere in that county, and what's happened to the rates over the last 2 years. Cheap power was a real reason people moved to parts of the state. That advantage is not guaranteed anymore, and it's not evenly distributed. Number 2, if you are selling, make sure you control the narrative instead of hoping nobody asks. If your county's tax base is being carried by a facility down the road, that's actually a selling point. Better funded services, a lighter relative tax burden, frame it in that way with real numbers before a buyer's agent frames it for you in the wrong way. And number 3, if you're investing, treat this as a land use story, not a housing story. Watch industrial and commercial parcels in newly eligible counties. Pierce among them, because that's where the next wave is getting built. Just go in with your eyes open. Opposition is real right now nationally, and permitting timelines are getting longer, they're not getting shorter. And if you're simply living here and you're buying your next home, hey, this isn't a reason to panic. It's a reason to ask better questions at this point. The state just went through a round of rewriting who pays for this. Parts of it stuck, the bigger piece died in committee, and there will be another session. The people that are asking good questions today are going to end up on the right side of it. All right, let me bring this home literally because I work this exact market every day. Most of what you just heard, Quincy, Grant County, the wheat country wins and loses. That's a Central Washington story. Most of you watching are looking over here. You're looking in Gig Harbor, Port Orchard, Tacoma. And here's the thing, this is not any more hypothetical. Pierce County has been legally eligible for this exact structure since 2022. The only real question is timing, not whether it's going to happen. So when I say ask the right questions before you buy, I don't mean someday out here this is going to happen. I mean, it's gonna happen here, which is exactly why I read those bill reports so you don't have to. Bottom line, data centers aren't free money and they're not some looming disaster either. It's a trade. You got cheaper land and power for the industry, tax revenue, and a handful of long-term jobs for the state. And this year, Washington took its first real swing in renegotiating that trade. Some of it landed, some of it died in committee. This is clearly not over. All right, so if you're gonna remember one thing, the power bill increase is already happening here. The jobs number shrinks after construction ends, and the tax break narrowed at the edges, but the core incentive is still fully intact. And what it does to your home truly depends on where you're sitting relative to the site, never what the county-wide headline is saying. I cover exactly this, the forces actually moving Washington's real estate, not just giving you listing walkthroughs, because you deserve the version of the story that isn't just a brochure or just about the home. If you want a second set of eyes on a specific property or area before you buy, that is what I do for my buyers and sellers. If you have made it this far with me, you are one who thinks instead of panics. So subscribe. I'll keep telling you the truth about what's actually happening here while others are trying to sell some brochure. In my next videos, I want you to check out what's going on with land, archaeology studies, and of course our tax rates. They are changing. But hey, there's good things coming as well. Can't wait to share with you investment properties and how you can make a little bit more bang for your buck on your property. See you next time.